The Jazz rookies struggled a little bit, but there were some nice signs from the Jazz rookies. Also, Jason Preston got some minutes and looked really good. Let's talk about it. It's the Hoops Nerd Show. All right, guys, before we get into it, let's give a shout out to Prize Picks. There they are. Use promo code HoopsNerd and they will match up to $100. A lot of fun. Go do it. It supports the channel and you'll have a blast. This end of the season is crazy. There are all sorts of advantages, usually on the unders, especially for a team like the Jazz, giving a lot of players different opportunities. But go bet the unders. And a lot of times you'll know something that other teams don't. One of those is that the Jazz defense is not very good. And so if you're picking the other team's best scorer to have a good night, chances are that's going to happen. So anyways, go to prizepicks.com, use promo code HoopsNerd. I would appreciate it a lot. All right, let's talk about the Utah Jazz. And let's see. There we go. We were a little grayed out there. All right, so the Utah Jazz went up against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And to start the show tonight, I want to make sure it's very clear something about the Timberwolves. And let's just refresh this to make sure it's clear. But look at who is the number one defense in the league, and by far. 108.2 is where Minnesota sits in the NBA in terms of defensive rating. I don't know what that is relative to other years, but all you can base this on is what's going on right now. And if you look at the Boston Celtics, who are also an elite defensive team, are 2 points back from them and very close to Cleveland. And then you've got a ton of these teams at 111. The fact that Minnesota is 2 points better than the second best defense in the NBA should tell you how good they are defensively. And I know Rudy Gobert wasn't playing tonight, so that, adjusts things a little bit, but they still had, Jaden McDaniels and Anthony Edwards, and just that entire team is just filled with good defenders at every position. They really did the thing that Jazz fans clamored for years, to put nice defenders around Rudy Gobert, and just never did. And this Wolves team has done it, and there's a reason why they're so high in the standings. Like that Jazz team, the Jazz team that got that number one seed that year, did it with offense. This Wolves team, they're okay offensively. In fact, you just look at the offensive rating here. They aren't even top 10. I mean, that's the crazy thing with this Minnesota. Look at that. They're the number 18 offense in the NBA, but they have such a good defense. They win games with defense. And so, for some of our players tonight to have bad nights should be that surprising when you have someone like Jaden McDaniels. Ultimate sign of respect from the Minnesota Timberwolves. They put Jaden McDaniels on Keyonte George from the get-go. And, it's part of the reason why Keyonte George struggled. And also part of it is that it's a back end of a back-to-back, and being a rookie point guard in this league is brutal. And he is running into that kind of fatigue wall pretty quickly. I don't know when. Let's see. In fact, let's just do this really fast. Utah's next game. Come on. Let's see. So Utah, do they play tomorrow? No. So they'll at least get 1 day of rest. They need it. They've got to be exhausted. They play again against the Minnesota Timberwolves, so they have a nice little home stretch. It's funny, there are so many, Jazz players on the Wolves, like, at least former Jazz players. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who has turned into such a nice player for this Wolves team. Obviously, Rudy Gobert, Mike Conley, they're probably happy that they get this time in Utah. In fact, is this in Utah, or did they go back to Minnesota? Yep, they get this long stand in Utah, so maybe they can convince Anthony Edwards that being in Utah is better than Minnesota, and they can get him somehow. Just kidding. But anyways, well, no, if they could figure that out, that would be incredible. But anyways, the Utah Jazz, like I said, they went up against the number one defense in the league, and it kind of showed in some of the percentages. For the game, the Jazz shot just 23% from three, 45% from the field is actually pretty decent. But the Jazz just struggled to shoot the three in this one. The only person who shot it well, actually, is Johnny Juzang, who is on a 2-game tear. In fact, he was shooting 14% before yesterday, and now I'm just curious what his three-point percentage has gone up to. For the season, he's now shooting 36% from three. So what a difference 2 days of good shooting makes when you haven't been playing a lot of minutes. And so Juzang's showing that he really is a legit shooter and might be earning himself some time next year for the Jazz, depending on what they do. But anyways, let's just go through this a little bit. I think, there's some things to dissect here. Brice Sensabaugh goes 4 for 12 from the field, and it's really because of the three-point shot. For whatever reason, the last 2 games, he has literally not been able to hit a three. I think he went like 0 for last game as well. And for whatever reason, that's, 2 games he can't knock down a three, and that was his biggest skill set. And so the nice thing that you're seeing from him, obviously you take this off, the three-point shooting off, he goes 4 for 7 from the 2-point range. And like we talked about last time, Sensabaugh really can score in that mid-range. It's a nice skill for him. He can get you a bucket when you need him to. The real problem right now for him, outside of that he just needs to get his three-point shot back, is that he's turning the ball over, and it's really coming from a handle that he just needs to improve his handle. It's not that solid. And so he needs to figure that out, and I assume that he will. But that's something that he's got to improve on. But you know what? He's a rookie. He looks really nice for Utah as a scorer. And the playmaking is actually pretty nice. Look at this. 2 assists, 7 rebounds. So, there's a lot to like there. Now, is he turning the ball over? Yes. That is something that rookies do. That is definitely something that you'll just see a lot of from rookie players. And if Utah takes 3 rookies into next season and plays them a lot, you're going to see a lot of turnovers. That's just a fact. And so that might be something we see, but you hope that those can kind of come down and they can improve on those weaknesses as their career goes along. But they're still rookies, and so we're still going to see this multiple times. It's not going to be the last time we see Brice Sensabaugh turn the ball over in certain situations. Taylor Hendricks continues to show really impressive things. I know the three-point shot isn't quite there, but he's starting to knock it down. 28%. I'd like to see this at obviously 36 to 44. You want to be in that range as a three-point shooter. And for him, if he can get the big thing and the big swing for Taylor Hendricks offensively is he just becomes a 40% three-point shooter from all over the floor. But you know what I really like from Hendricks is that he is not afraid to drive to the basket. He's doing it on multiple occasions, and good things are happening. He had one where he missed the shot. I can't remember. It was like a turnover. I can't remember exactly what happened. Oh, he did turn it over. First off, because he's going against, the best defense in the NBA with elite perimeter defenders. Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels. Mike Conley's a solid defender. He's probably the worst defender on the team. But when Mike Conley's your worst defender, that means you are incredible defensively. And then, Kyle Anderson and all these guys are good defenders. And so for him to be able to drive a few times shows he's not afraid, and I like it. Because how do you get better if you aren't trying the things that are out of your comfort zone? I just think it's going to be really fascinating to see what he does next season. Sorry. Gosh, dang it. Every time this happens. But anyways, 5 for 12 from the field. I love what I'm seeing. But it's one of the things I think is really interesting is the rebounding. He gets 10 rebounds in this game. He gets a double-double, 15 points, 10 rebounds. But and look at this, 4 free throws for Hendricks too, getting to the line. So there's some things there that are really nice to see. But the fact that he's getting these 10 rebounds, they are impressive rebounds. Not all rebounds are created equally, Getting rebounds on free throws and things like that is one thing. But getting these in-traffic rebounds against a big athletic team like the Minnesota Timberwolves is pretty big deal. I mean, I'm having a hard time not getting super excited about what we're seeing and not getting too grandiose, but I have a feeling Taylor Hendricks is going to just get better and better and better, and he's showing different reasons why. And the big reason is just the athleticism. It's hard to not succeed in the NBA when you're that athletic at that size with that type of skill set to shoot the ball. The guy has hands. He shoots, 3 for 4 from the free throw line is nice to see. There's just a world. It's just hard for me to not see Taylor Hendricks turning into a high-level shooter, at the very least catch and shoot threes, while also being an elite defender. Basically, what we're seeing from this Minnesota Timberwolves team, we're going to see a lot of stuff like that from Taylor Hendricks. There is a lot to like. It's not the most flashy. Holly's driving me crazy on some of these broadcasts, guys. I just got to be honest. Sometimes she'll say things, and maybe it's just because they're losing, and it's hard to be in a good mood when you're seeing things and rooting for your team and whatnot, and then you find out like, oh, that's a cute little story, or talking about someone's eyebrows, and meanwhile, like every guy watching it is just like, "Ah, get a brat," and then you hear how cute things are, and you're just like, I don't know. It's a pill to take that we're all gonna have to take. Um, but one good point she made, and something she mentioned, is that I guess the Jazz have shown film to Hendricks of Jaden McDaniels, which I actually thought was a really nice comp, because Jaden McDaniels is one of the elite perimeter defenders in the NBA, truly elite, really up there. And Taylor Hendricks can be the same type of player. And if you have Jaden McDaniels who's getting big time money, really nice to see. Yes, Dre, I agree. Sometimes I'm like just and maybe I'm different here with like broadcasts. I don't care about the other team and hyping them up. I don't care about it. It feels like so many of these announcers are announcing for like these national guys that complain about stupid stuff. Who cares what Ryan Russillo thinks when he's watching your broadcast? Or these losers from like The Ringer or whatever that talk about the broadcasts, or Zach Lowe or whatever, that they're not talking about the other team too. Screw them. Who cares? Who's watching the Jazz broadcast outside of 90% Jazz fans, right? It's like 95% Jazz fans, right? Because guess what? Minnesota fans are watching their broadcast. And we're worried about like the smallest handful of observers. It's so stupid. Hype up the Jazz. It's okay once in a while to say something about it, and maybe we're all just mad because it's a loss. But sometimes it's like, I don't want to hear about Anthony Edwards after he's mean mugging, Keyonte George after just knocking down that 4-3 in a row, and the Jazz are, you know what I mean? There's like a time and a place. And I tell you what, here's a rule of thumb for announcers. And by the way, I'll go freaking do it. Put me on the freaking show and I'll show you how it's done. I don't want to hear a single person tell me how to do it, because I can promise you I can. I would go up there and I would freaking do it. But here's a rule of thumb. It is okay to talk about the other team. No, Kristen Kenny sucks too, dude. She sucked. She was worse. She was so much worse, dude. I'm not kidding. I did a dance when they finally moved on. But here's a rule of thumb. When you're talking about the other team, do it when the Jazz are succeeding. If the Jazz are succeeding and have a nice night or doing something great, then it's okay. That's when like my senses are okay to hear it. When I'm, especially when the Jazz were really, doing great, and then they had that slump after they had that huge winning section of the season. And I was losing my mind half the time. But don't talk about how good the other team is. It's when they're destroying the team you're watching, It's like salt in the wound. That's really what it is. It drives me crazy. Don't do it. Don't do it. Like, can I tell you about a time I got in a fight in school? I wouldn't have gotten the fight if I hadn't just failed in a biology test and got told by my teacher I did a bad job. And you're going on the bus, I worked on this biology test, and I took the bus to school for most of my high school days. I didn't get to drive to school until I drove my parents' beat up minivan as a senior. I was on the bus. But anyways, you have to get on this bus after you just had the worst day. You're like tired. You get on the bus, and this kid punched me in the stomach. Apparently I had bumped him when he was getting off the bus to go into the school, and I was mad coming onto the bus, and as I'm walking down the middle lane of that old yellow school bus, he punched me, and I lost it. I started wailing on this kid until he had blood coming down his lip, and I went and sat down right behind him, and I asked him if he'd had enough. I can't remember what happened. And then he turned around and he said, "Is that all you got?" As blood came down his face. And I took my backpack. And, this is horrible. I shouldn't have done it. But I was in a bad mood. And I had 5 school books in that bag. I took that bag and I slammed it. And his head went into the glass. I cannot believe the glass did not shatter. I got yelled at by the bus driver, and I sat in the he told me to come sit in the front, and I sat by some kids I knew up there. And you know what? It's the same principle. When when you are in a bad mood, that's not the time I want to hear how great Anthony Edwards is. That's not the time, nor the place. Do it when we're in good moods. But and this was the thing that Matt Harpring always did, or when the refs make a terrible call. Like tonight, they missed 2 inbounds on the Jazz in the first half that were obvious. And then the charge call on Keyonte, which is just like, are you serious? By the way, the broadcast crew not being able to understand why they called that back was a little mind-boggling. But that's not the time to talk about how good and the refs are doing, which was freaking Matt Harpring's favorite thing to do, to take the ref's side on every single situation. That's one thing I do appreciate about Holly and this crew, is they actually will acknowledge when the referees are being horrible, like just terrible, borderline corrupt, and they'll comment on it, and I appreciate that. But that's my rule of thumb. Please don't compliment the other team at the very beginning of the game. Compliment the other team when the Jazz are playing great and things are going their way. But don't do it when the Jazz are getting, like, when the other team's starting to pull away and Jazz fans are just frustrated. That's where I would say don't. Okay, because it's the same principle. You just did a bad job on your biology test. Not a great time to get punched. All right? I mean, that same kid stabbed me with a pencil. I freaking hate that kid, by the way. I do not regret it. I feel bad about it, but I do not regret it. He stabbed me with a freaking pencil. Do you know what it feels like to get stabbed with a pencil? It doesn't feel good. And he did that in a situation where I couldn't do anything. He knew I couldn't, so I had to rip this pencil out of my leg, and I was going to just absolutely murder this kid. So when he punched me at that time on the bench, he had it coming, and that was that. There were no problems after that. All right? I do not recommend getting stabbed. It's not fun. I did not like it. I don't think you would either. It's not great. All right, where were we? So how about Walker Kessler? Walker Kessler, 30 minutes tonight. And I have to say, after last game, I was worried. I was worried about Walker Kessler. Like, what is going on? What is going on? Walker Kessler, 3 for 4 tonight. He had 10 rebounds, 1 block shot. I felt like it was one of his best games of the year. And, they were like subtle things he was doing. Like, there were little plays where he was screening off guys so Colin Sexton could go score. Just nice, really nice things. And I felt like he impacted the game in a lot of ways, and he plays 30 minutes tonight. It was nice to see. And I felt like, the Wolves pulled away midway through the 4th quarter, and I think it was mostly because this Jazz team is young and they were honestly exhausted. But they were up by 8 at one point. The game was tied at halftime, and they just kind of ran out of gas. But I felt like the Taylor Hendricks Walker Kessler duo was pretty good defensively. They did a pretty solid job. And so that was nice to see. Now, I don't know what the future holds for Walker Kessler, but it was really nice to see him have a nice night tonight for the Jazz, because he has been in some just weird slump. I don't know what is the deal. There is just something with him that's, not great. And, Holly made another comment that I thought was interesting. She mentioned how Walker Kessler talked about how nice it was to be set up by Mike Conley. You know what I'm getting kind of tired of is hearing about Mike Conley. If every single freaking player on the Jazz was dependent completely on Mike Conley to be effective in an NBA game, then that's a problem. You know, it's a problem. Yes, the Wolves, and Mike Conley's a great player. It's really true. I mean, he goes to that Minnesota Timberwolves, and it really kind of locked everything in place because he really is a very high-level point guard, does a great job. But if it breaks your entire team just to lose Mike Conley, then that's not a great sign. Keyonte George is not missing Mike Conley. Brice Sensabaugh is doing fine without Mike Conley. Walker Kessler needs to figure out how to be effective without someone making everything in your life the easiest. Because if Mike Conley sets everyone up, then Mike Conley's going to do that with every team. If you can't be effective with Mike Conley, then that's an issue. It really is. And that goes for Lauri Markkanen as well. I am so tired of hearing everyone say, well, Lauri Markkanen isn't effective if he doesn't have Mike Conley. Oh, so you're not effective if you don't have an elite point guard giving you, spoon feeding you everything perfectly? Well, guess what? That's not going to happen all the time. And things change in the playoffs. By the way, with Mike Conley on the Utah Jazz, things didn't go so well in the playoffs because things weren't spoon fed perfectly, right? So if everything is dependent during the regular season on one guy, that's a problem. It really is. I don't want to hear that Lauri Markkanen and Walker Kessler and all these guys are ineffective if they don't have Mike Conley, because that's a sign that they probably aren't elite NBA players, okay? Now, I'm not saying that Lauri Markkanen isn't a great NBA player, because he is. But I do not want to hear anymore that because the Jazz don't have Mike Conley, they can't be effective. That is a you problem, okay? Keyonte George is a rookie point guard, but he's doing pretty darn well recently and setting people up pretty well. Is it Mike Conley level? No, but that's because he's a rookie. Walker Kessler had a nice night tonight, and that's what I wanted to say. This isn't to blast Walker Kessler, and so that's what made me happy. He had a nice night, did not need Mike Conley to have a nice night, right? That's nice to see. And obviously, he's just a second-year player. He can definitely continue to develop, continue to get better, and blah, 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 blah. But I honestly, if I hear one more time, we don't have Mike Conley, and that's why our team's not very good. You know what? There's a lot of teams out there winning a lot of games that don't have Mike Conley as well, okay? A lot of teams out there. And that's one thing I think this Jazz team is trying to do is find players that don't have to be spoon-fed everything perfectly to be effective. Somehow the Boston Celtics are winning a lot of games without Mike Conley. The Denver Nuggets seem to be okay without him. The Los Angeles Clippers are somehow winning games without Mike Conley. Philadelphia is okay without Mike Conley. Lots of teams out there are doing okay. All right. I hate that argument. I really hate it. It drives me nuts. Yeah, you know what? If Mike Conley went to the Detroit Pistons, they'd be the number 4 seed. If Mike Conley goes to the Washington Wizards, they're going to win the NBA championship. All they needed was Mike Conley setting everything up perfectly for everyone. Mike Conley, the best player in the NBA, apparently. The best NBA player we've ever seen since, John Stockton. Absolutely impossible to replicate what Mike Conley does. Oh, my gosh. KG10 to TH5, $2. My man, thank you very much. Conley equals the former point guard who would not be named. I mean, if you guys want to talk about him, I'm so tired of hearing that narrative. That narrative drives me crazy because you should not be so dependent on one guy. Unless that guy is Anthony Edwards and he's taking you all the way, or Nikola Jokic or Joel Embiid, So anyways, that's my thoughts on that. This was an interesting thing tonight. Chris Dunn starts in place of Colin Sexton, which honestly was a surprise to me, but I thought it was interesting. I wonder if it's just to improve the defense. And you know what? The defense was pretty solid tonight. When you look at Taylor Hendricks, I just clicked it. Taylor Hendricks, Walker Kessler, and Chris Dunn, and they did well defensively. It was pretty solid. Yes, the Wolves pulled away at the end, but it was pretty impressive. Chris Dunn has his deficiencies, and it's usually on the offensive end, but defensively, he is really solid. And so, you know what? 2 steals for him. You know what's? I was looking at hustle stats. In fact, let's just pull this up just for fun. Let's go to stats. Let's go to players. I like the hustle stats. They are one of the reasons why. Let's see, hustle. And then let's do this. We're going to pull up the Utah Jazz. Run it, baby. All right. These are the hustle stats. These are like showing you who's out there doing stuff. Look who leads the Jazz in deflections. Chris Dunn, 2.3 a game. This actually is an interesting one. Kelly Olynyk was 1.8. And here, right here, is probably why Talen Horton-Tucker gets the minutes that he does. 1.7 deflections per game. Number 3 on the Jazz. For current Jazz players, he's number 2. Colin Sexton, 1.6. And then Larry Markkinen, 1.4 per game. I'm interested to see Taylor Hendricks if this can go up, but he's at 1 per game right now. Look at this. Loose balls. And you know what? Let's go to, well, I don't know if averages is good for this. Let's go to, how do we do totals? All right, here we go. Perfect. And let's just look at this. So, deflections, 131 for Chris Dunn, 106 for Colin Sexton. Pretty impressive stuff. And then, you know what? Taylor Hendricks is already at 6. That'll go up. Or no, that's the wrong thing. Taylor Hendricks at 24. That's going to go up. That's going to be fun to watch. All right. Offensive loose balls covered. How many do you think? Who do you think is leading in this one? You can probably already see John Collins. Offensive loose balls recovered. The guy hustles on the offensive boards. In fact, this is where I'm frustrated with Walker Kessler. This is where, this is why I'm a little worried. Is this type of thing. That's what I love about these hustle stats, is it actually shows you some numbers for what your eyes are seeing. And what I felt like with Walker Kessler is I want to see more hustle, more oomph, more juice. Look at this. John Collins leads the Jazz on the offensive end. This is offensive boards, I assume, also included here, but 38. Colin Sexton, 33. Doesn't that match the eye test with how hard he plays and what he does in the offensive end? This absolutely matches the eye test. Kelly Olynyk with 17. Simone Fontecchio with 16. Markkinen with 14. And then this just goes down. Now, some of this, the rookies haven't played as much, but your bigs should be up there. The fact that Walker Kessler is not up here is actually not a good sign, to be honest. That's crazy. Honestly. All right, defensive loose balls covered. This is the defensive end. Let's see who leads. Colin Sexton and Chris Dunn. These guys go after those loose balls. And then look, John Collins also shows up. If you want to know why coaches might be giving a certain player more minutes, if there's one thing an NBA coach is going to like, it's hustle. Are you diving for those balls? Are you running to go get them? And Colin Sexton and Chris Dunn, go get them. It's hard not to be excited about something like that. Loose balls total recovered. Colin Sexton, John Collins, who did not play tonight, so Colin Sexton probably got the edge tonight after playing. Pretty interesting stuff. All right. Percentage balls recovered offensive. Oh, that's interesting. Walker Kessler shows up, so maybe I'm being too hard on him. That's interesting. Walker Kessler is also playing less minutes this year, so I don't know. I would like to see more. I want to see more from Walker Kessler. Those are the types of things you're looking at. So let's see. Keyonte George, bad shooting night. There's no way around it, although he did take 8 free throws tonight. And so that means because he's getting to the free throw line, the efficiency goes up. So even though he takes 16 shots and only makes 5, because he gets to the free throw line, he had 18 points with 16 shots. There's the efficiency. This right here is pretty exciting stuff. The referees right now, since All-Star break, have changed. The NBA, if you didn't see, Shams Charania put out a memo that scoring is down, and part of that has been officials, and they are not calling as much when offensive players initiate contact to get the foul. They're just not calling it, and scoring is down across the NBA pretty drastically. So for Key to get these 8 free throws is really impressive. It's actually harder now to get these free throws. You compare that. How many did Anthony Edwards only took 3 free throws today, and he's superstar. He's getting the superstar calls. Didn't get them. So for Keyonte George to take 8 means he is he is embracing contact and getting those shots off. He is not afraid to get fouled. So nice to see. I think the shooting is down because I think he's exhausted. Back end of a back-to-back, going full court with Jaden McDaniels on him. He's going to the basket hard, getting these. He's also being asked to guard Mike Conley on the other end. Pretty big time ask. And so you shouldn't be surprised that his scoring is down. Is it something to be worried about? Absolutely not. In fact, if anything, I'm actually more impressed. Him getting those shots off with that type of length is a big deal. And once he just gets more time, more seasoned, more reps, and more experience, and those shooting numbers just get better, we've got a special point guard on our hands. Truly, he's going to be great. And yes, the shooting numbers weren't there tonight. This is exhaustion, but that's all I'm taking it as. It's a rookie point guard. It's got to be the most brutal. It is the most brutal thing. Taking that ball up, being guarded 3/4 court, having to just figure your way out up the court, and then you have to run a set, and then on the other end you're playing defense, and it's not like defense where you're like a big, where the most you're doing is either coming out and back into the free throw line. When you're a rookie, when you're a point guard and defending point guards, you're going over screens constantly. The number one play, what do they run in the NBA? Pick and roll. You are constantly going over the screens. So anyways, I promise you, he's exhausted. Johnny Juzang, we already mentioned it a little bit, but man, what an elite 3-point shooter. He's at 36% now after 2 games. I would not be surprised if that gets up. The more comfortable he gets, the better he'll be. And so nice to see. Colin Sexton, we mentioned it. He comes off the bench as a 6th man, and I actually think this is where they would like to see Colin Sexton over the long haul. And, if they trade Colin Sexton this offseason, then obviously it doesn't matter. But if they don't and they keep him as a long-term piece, I do think they see him as a 6th man long-term. So it's interesting to see him there. And maybe that, maybe it's just, who knows? Maybe they wanted to try Chris Dunn. Who knows why? Maybe they just felt like having Colin Sexton as a 6th man, just wanted to see it. These games, does it really matter that much? They are very much trying to lose games. I don't know when Lauri Markkanen will be back. It sounds like relatively soon. So in situations like this, why not just try something? So Sexton goes to the 6th man. I have noticed a few mistakes defensively from him, and someone on Twitter made a good point that, having him as the shooting guard with your starting unit, it's just not as much length as you really want. And so, let's see. So having Chris Dunn as that shooting guard, and he is such a good defender, it kind of makes up for the fact that he's not super big. And so you saw it tonight. For much of the game, Dunn did a great job defensively. So anyway, Sexton as a 6th man works pretty well. 9 for 16, 22 points, and 10 assists. If he can give you this type of production off the bench, that's fantastic. And by the way, he played 30 minutes tonight, which is he played the second most minutes of the night. So does it really matter if he comes off the bench or not? It doesn't really matter. And, Will Hardy can bring him in situationally, and if he's playing great, just keeps him on the floor. But I think the reason you probably start with this unit, this is just my assumption. I don't know exactly why the Jazz would do this, but maybe the assumption is just a better defensive look to improve that defense, because the Jazz honestly have a terrible defense right now. It looked better tonight. And, some of that is the Wolves have the number 18 offense, and they don't have Rudy Gobert. They don't have Karl Anthony Towns. And so maybe the Jazz just thought, you know what? Maybe we can muck this game up and kind of win defensively. It may have just been as simple as that. Hey, this might give us a chance to win this game. Let's try it. And it actually worked for the most part until the Jazz just ran out of gas. Let's see. Omer Yurtseven had a nice night. He was out there balling. 14 points in 17 minutes. He was 6 for 7 from the field. And these weren't the easiest shots. These were like hook shots over Naz Reid. He also had 5 rebounds and 3 block shots. Omer Mutombo out there is what he looked like. He looked awesome. So nice night from Omer Yurtseven. Nice to see. Micah Potter got more minutes tonight. They weren't a ton, but he was a +9, led the Jazz in plus minus. But Micah Potter, nice to see him playing pretty decently for the Jazz. We talked about him last time. I have all the respect in the world for Micah Potter. The guy is doing everything the Jazz ask him to. And so shout out to Micah Potter. I would love to see him on the Jazz next year. Why not? A guy that can spread the floor, knows how to play, those guys, have a lot of value. You just give him $1 million contract and just keep him on the Jazz. Jason Preston got to play. I wanted to talk a little bit about Preston. I made him the thumbnail. By the way, in fact, can I just show this before? I got some new assets I'm working on. I talked to one of my favorite artists who does pixel art. I love pixel art. That's the theme of the channel. I'm going to try some fun things. I actually have some ideas I want to try that I think I can actually do with him, and I can actually afford it. He's actually affordable. So it's nice to see. But, my background, this one right here, which I kind of like. I guess it's like an 80s theme, which I kind of like. I like 80s, the Stranger Things kind of vibe. Well, we're going full pixel art, and I'm going to do some fun things. And this is kind of going to be that new background. And I really like it. What do you guys think? This is close to done. I shouldn't be using this yet, but who cares? I think it looks fun. I'm excited. And I'm going to do some other themes that I think are pretty fun. So, I don't know. Thank you to you guys for supporting the channel, and so I can do stuff like that and just improve it. We're going to try some fun things. Okay, can I just tell you what I want to do? So, I'm going to be doing more produced content, famous last words. I say it all the time. But I have one thing I have been working on, and with the agency that supports the channel, I was talking to my rep and just some things I want to do. And a lot of that is, in fact, let's just pull it up for fun. But a lot of that is, I want to do it with this. And I think that this kind of look and theme. But what I want to do is that I want to have a kind of a full overlay of kind of pixels. So it looks like kind of like if you had a halftime show during NBA Jam, and it had like a screen, let's see, so like a screen here or whatever, showing the highlights or the clips that I get, but then like a pixel avatar of me like talking and like having different I don't know. That's what I'm going to go for, and I think it'll be pretty fun, and I'm excited to do it. And we'll see. Maybe it'll crash and burn, but I want to try some new things, and I think that would make my channel look unique when I do produce stuff. And I honestly kind of want to try a different overlay with what we're doing right here. Like, wouldn't it be fun if I was like even like smaller? Oh, I forget where my mouse is. Like me smaller with like an overlay of some pixel stuff. And I just think it would be fun, and I'm going to have fun with it. So that's what I'm going to do. But anyways, back to Preston. He had 4 rebounds and 5 assists in 12 minutes. In 12 minutes. There's a reason he's a triple-double monster. He just has an absolute nose for the ball. The guy, and he is just, I don't know how else to describe it. He's just a really good basketball player. He just understands basketball very well. I honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this guy is just kind of brilliant. Just like honestly, mentally, just super intelligent, because he just makes the right play. He makes everything look simple. He had so many different times on the floor where he just gets the ball and he just moves it immediately. Even his entry passes are just smart. He gets the ball to Omer Yurtseven right in the post from the above the break 3-point line. Oh, Yurtseven just hooks it in. There's guys like this that just understand basketball at another level. And, he's actually got pretty decent size. What is he, 6'5"? 6'3". So he's not quite as big, but he looks like 6'3" is pretty good at the point guard position. And he looks bigger to me. I don't know why. But anyways, and maybe it's just the way he plays. He just gets those over the top passes that hit guys in the right spot. He moves the ball to three-point shooters. I mean, he moves that ball so quickly. And then he makes nice little plays where he goes to that free throw line. You know, he wasn't really hitting that floater for tonight, and he didn't do it last night either, but that's there. And I think when that starts falling, you know, he hasn't even taken a three. I don't even think he took one last game either. He's not even shooting the three yet, but you know, the Jazz might have their future backup point guard for a long time in Jason Preston. He honestly, I'm telling you, I've been doing this a while, and some guys you just see it like right away. I saw it right away with Keyonte George, like, oh boy, the Jazz have something here. And I tell you what, I don't know if it's like, I don't know. I think Jason Preston has a chance to be a really nice addition to this team. And I honestly, we didn't see Taylor Horton-Tucker tonight, and I am so happy to see that. We're going to see Jason Preston just continue to get these minutes. Pretty rough go for Taylor Horton-Tucker. That's how you tank Taylor Horton-Tucker. And getting him replaced by Jason Preston, who played pretty well. You know, that thing that I was also impressed with him as well is that he looks so composed. You know, when I see Johnny Juzang out there, there's times where he looks a little like, oh, I gotta make the shot. I gotta shoot the shot. I gotta make it. And Jason Preston just looks composed. He's not rattled at all. He knows what play to make. Now, we haven't seen enough, and I'm not gonna pretend like I've watched every Stars game, because I haven't watched any. Well, I've watched a little of some. But Preston, just from what I've seen, my little glimpses, I am impressed. 5 assists. So basically, if you do per 36, 12, 24, 36 times these by 3, that's 12 rebounds and 15 assists. You know, and that obviously he's not going to do that against starting unit. But if you can get like triple double pace from your point guard with efficiency, he's a +4. And I felt like his defense was pretty decent, you know? So I'm pretty excited. I hope we see more. I really do. If he gets put down back to the Stars, I'm going to be really bummed. I hope the Jazz make big-time trades this offseason and let all their young guys go so they can lose a lot of games but see a lot of development. And by the end of the year, you're going to have something nice in Jason Preston, for sure. You're going to have something nice in Keyonte. Taylor Hendricks is going to show you some things. I hope we see Brice Sensabaugh take another step with his kind of physical, just his fitness, and then also with his handle. And man, and then you add Cooper Flagg and you get some guys in free agency, and there you go. You just take off. It's just that easy, guys. Just that easy. So I don't know. I cannot wait to cover this offseason. It's going to be a lot of fun. And you know what? Thanks for the kind words about the look, because I think it's going to be fun. I'm going to probably do a different overlay for the channel itself. I would love to just kind of make an overlay that kind of matches the channel itself. We'll see. You know what's really hard is thumbnails. Thumbnails are hard. It seems simple, but it's not. To have something that looks good, but that also does the job of intriguing the viewer, it's hard to do. It's not easy. And I've been doing this for a freaking long time, and I'm still trying to kind of do a better job of it. So anyways, guys, you're incredible for being a part of the show. So by the way, other good news for those who are pro tank, for a little bit there, I thought when Anthony Edwards hurt his ankle, I was like, are we going to win another game? And this time against the Wolves? But then he came back and, you know, destroyed the Jazz. But anyways, if you're pro tank, and I think most Jazz fans at this point would like the Jazz to just tank it out, and I find myself rooting for that as well, because I just don't really see a path for the Jazz conveying the pick anymore. Let's see here. Houston has won 5 games in a row. Houston might darn near replace the Lakers, especially if they lose Anthony Davis. They are only, 3.5 games back? If the Lakers don't watch themselves, it is very likely they could drop out of the entire play-in. By the way, that 2027 pick for the Lakers, looking real nice for Utah. Like, perfect. Because Anthony Davis is going to be like 34, 35. LeBron James is going to be using a walking stick out on the court, and they're going to be just good enough to give the Jazz like a 7 or 8 pick. It's going to be awesome. All right, so if the lottery was tonight and the Utah Jazz, who have now locked up the number 9, what happens? Utah jumps to 3, baby! How about that? Utah in the top 3 of the NBA lottery. In a lottery not that many are super excited about. But guess what? That would be pretty nice. And that gets you your choice of Nikola Topic, Cody Williams, Ron Holland, Jacoby Walter, and honestly, one of my favorites, Stephon Castle. I personally would be ecstatic at this because this means you get Cody Williams, 6'8", defensive monster who can also shoot the 3. Doesn't that sound nice? Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Oh my gosh, that would be crazy. That would be bonkers. Could you imagine if the Jazz win this lottery? Oh my gosh. All right, well, that's it for the show. Let's give a shout out to our All-Stars tonight. Thank you so much, guys, for supporting the channel. If you'd like to support the channel, just hit join below. You want to join Rookie and be a part of the chat, or you want to join the All-Stars and get your nickname and be a producer of the show, it's up to you. Let's give a shout out to Ryan Perry, the legend, the Tim Protector Roebuck, Nathan Butnett Burkhart, Dirty Jazz Car Wash Channel, Fly Eagles Fly, Platinum Eagles, The Real Deal Lars Jarvin and Just Buckets JB, Baby Elliott Matson, Christian House Money DeHaas, The Outlaw Jesse James Nelson, Ezekiel Raicibe, the man from down under. See ya, Alexa later, Built Ford Tough, Alexander Tufts, Jorge Arrizaga, mi amigo de abajo, Jordan the Go Best Rule, TGD Total Game Domination, Tyson Brice, the Price is Right, Austin our Grant Editor Extraordinaire, KG10 to TH5, DW to CB Williams to Carlos Boozer, Patrick Kubo the Connoisseur, and Robert Hall of Fame. Guys, if you haven't already, like and subscribe to the channel. I will talk to you next time.